That old man's a thief. That's what she yelled right there in front of the whole neighborhood phone already pressed to her ear, dialing 911, like she just discovered a masked bandit in broad daylight instead of my grandpa watering his roses. You ever see someone so sure the law's on their side, they don't even bother checking the facts? Yeah, that was Melissa Crawford, Queen Bee of the Willowbrook HOA, convinced my grandpa was about to be carted off in handcuffs for daring to stand in his own yard. Except, well, life loves throwing curveballs, and this one nearly took her head clean off. The second the call went through, the air changed like when thunder rolls in before the storm, the voice on the other end. Not your average dispatcher. It was smooth, commanding the kind of tone that makes grown folks sit up straight and regret every bad thing they've ever done. Melissa's whole body went stiff, face draining to the color of skim milk, trembling like she'd just seen a ghost. And honestly, she kind of had. My grandpa Bill Thompson, retired federal judge legend in these parts, was standing tall in front of his century-old house, the same house the HOA swore was abandoned, and Melissa was about to find out the hard way what happens when you pick the wrong fight. Let me back up a sec. See, that house had been in my family since 1924, passed down through generations of judges, lawyers, and one infamous artist who'd painted wild psychedelic murals on the basement walls. Real history, real roots. I'd come back to Willowbrook thinking I was just helping Grandpa out, finishing up law school, and looking forward to quiet mornings. But that morning I stepped into a story you only hear about on podcasts or late-night TV. Grandpa was tending his roses at sunrise, coffee in hand, moving with the same steady routine he'd kept for 30 years. While I, third-year law student and forensic science nerd, was finally noticing how strange our HOA president really looked. Melissa didn't just arrive, she stormed in high heels, stabbing the grass hair so perfect it looked like it belonged on a shampoo commercial, not in a suburban drama. But under that thick makeup, something wasn't right. Her face was almost artificial, too sharp, like she'd been sculpted for the stage instead of real life. She barked, "What are you doing here, old man?" And when Grandpa told her, calm as ever, that little smile flickering at the corners of his mouth, "Just watering my roses, same as always," her whole expression twisted, rage morphing into something I couldn't read, something colder. She fumbled her clipboard, flashing fake documents about the house being abandoned, but her hands were shaking, and her eyes kept darting back to Grandpa's face like she was trying to place him. Then with a flourish, she called the cops. You could practically hear the gears in her head grinding when the 911 operator didn't play along. Instead of sending a cruiser, the operator asked for a description. Melissa recited it like she was reading a menu. Tall gray hair, blue cardigan. You know, criminal mastermind stuff. Then, "Ma'am, please hold while I transfer you to the appropriate department." The hold music that followed was elevator grade, but the tension off the charts. Melissa's smug confidence melted into confusion, then fear. When the line finally picked up again, a deep voice boomed. "This is Judge William Thompson. To whom am I speaking?" I'll never forget the way Melissa's phone slipped out of her hand, landing in the grass like it burned her. Grandpa stepped forward, picked it up, and announced, "Yes, this is Judge Thompson, retired. I'm standing in my own yard, which my family's owned for a century." He was calm, but there was an edge in his voice that'd make a lion back down. Now you might think this is where the story ends. HOA, Karen humiliated, scampering back to her mansion with her tail between her legs, but the real trouble was just getting started. Melissa wasn't just a power-hungry president with too much free time. As I watched her retreat, that weird chemical smell got stronger, and I caught a glimpse of panic in her eyes. My gut said something was rotten way past the usual suburban nonsense. So I started digging. Turns out Melissa's history in Willowbrook was about as real as her hair color. She'd shown up 3 years ago, bought the biggest house with cash, and immediately started fixing the neighborhood families, leaving houses selling for a loss. Mysterious construction at all hours. Kids getting sick, chemical odors in the air. Her paper trail was a work of art, crafted by someone who knew how to hide skeletons. One family's kid got sick and nearly died. Then the house sold fast, neighbors whispered, but nobody spoke up. Another old-timer reported chemical smells, ended up hospitalized for a gas leak that wasn't a gas leak, moved away without a word. The city inspector who was supposed to check Melissa's house kept taking vacations that didn't match his salary, and every time another family left. I connected the dots, and what I saw was less HOA president, more mob boss. Then came the kicker. A weird, faint clicking noise whenever Melissa talked, like she had a metronome in her jaw, and those shadows under her makeup that looked like scars. One night under the new UV streetlights, I saw its scars crisscrossing her face, methodical and deep, like she'd tried to erase herself and start over. I ran her through every forensic database I could access, desperate to figure out who she really was. What I found nearly stopped my heart. Melissa Crawford didn't exist, but Regina Blackwood did, a notorious criminal who'd run a blackmail ring out of D.C., blackmailing judges, senators, CEOs. She'd vanished after serving time for running a criminal empire, rumored to have destroyed her own face in prison, determined to get revenge on the judge who put her away. And wouldn't you know it, that judge was my grandpa. I laid it all out for Grandpa that night, every report, every mugshot, every detail. He didn't flinch, just looked me in the eye and said, "I always knew she'd come back. I just hoped she'd pick someone else." And in that moment, I understood this was way bigger than some neighborhood spat. Turns out Regina hadn't just shown up to harass my family. She'd been rebuilding her operation, recruiting old contacts, setting up a chemical lab right in Willowbrook, using the HOA as a front. I watched her team arrive late at night, a chemist, a weapons expert, a third guy whose specialty made my blood run cold. They built an underground pipe system running beneath half the houses in the neighborhood, delivering chemical agents through vents and gardens, making people sick until they fled. The plan I discovered was simple and terrifying. Use the network to gas the whole block, kill my grandpa and anyone who might testify, cover it up as an industrial accident, and disappear before anyone caught on. She had military-grade tech-encrypted radios and help from corrupt officials who owed her their careers. We had hours to stop her. Grandpa revealed his own secret. He'd been quietly helping the FBI, working with undercover agents to trap Regina and her network. We staged an emergency HOA meeting, called every resident to the community center at dawn, and set up forensic equipment to monitor the air for toxins. As neighbors gathered, worried, tired, half-believing Regina strutted in thick makeup, hiding the scars, eyes scanning the crowd for danger. But this time the danger was her own. I started the meeting with a routine environmental report, then dropped the bomb evidence of a chemical weapons network right under our feet. The room erupted. Neighbors gasped, some cried, and when I called out Regina, her mask shattered. Under the UV lights, the truth glared for all to see. Her face ravaged and raw, her jaw clacking with those titanium plates, every inch screaming what she'd done to herself and to us. She tried to trigger a gas release, tried to kill us all right then, but the FBI was ready, swooping in with hazmat suits, locking the place down. Neighbors shared their stories at last, every piece fitting together a decade of evil finally exposed. The final twist, Regina's own team flipped on her. The chemist, the weapons guy, even her right-hand man. They turned state's evidence, helped the feds track similar operations across the country, took down her entire network, even a handful of government traitors who'd helped her stay hidden. Regina was finished, not just arrested, but exposed, every dirty secret dragged into daylight, every ounce of power stripped away. Afterwards, Willowbrook changed. The chemical pipes were torn out, the houses decontaminated, the school rebuilt, safer than ever. Mrs. Henderson, the neighbor everyone called paranoid, became the local hero, leading recovery efforts and making sure nobody forgot how close we came to disaster. Grandpa testified before Congress, his words making headlines. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about protecting people from those who believe they're above the law. Regina got life without parole, her empire shattered by the community she tried to destroy. So here's the thing. If you're watching this thinking your neighborhood's safe because you keep your lawn mowed and pay your dues, think again. Evil can move in next door and wear a smile just as easy as a mask. But if you pay attention, stand together, and trust the evidence, even the darkest secrets can't stay hidden forever. What would you do if your HOA president turned out to be America's most wanted criminal? Drop your thoughts below, right or wrong, justice or revenge. I want to hear your take. And if you want more stories where the good guys win using brains, not brawn, hit that like button and subscribe. Because sometimes the quietest street hides the wildest stories, and you never know who's really watching from behind those curtains.